Okay, so this is my virtual tour of the botanical gardens at Yanney. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of backstory. Michael Yanney bought 80 acres of land um, to honor his parents, and 12.6 acres are now the botanical gardens where I work. So we're going to start with the Gail and Michael Yanney Pavilion. And it is a pavilion that is available to rent through the city. It seats about 200 people. It has a catering kitchen and artwork inside. And from the front of the pavilion is one of the best views of the gardens, which you will see shortly. Okay, this is our shade arboretum. In about 30 years, when the trees are bigger, it's going to be really nice, and we intend to put picnic tables and have like a really cool sort of shaded area for our patrons of the park. So it's a lot of shade trees like your maples, elms, and lindens, but right now it's a little sad looking. Okay, so all of the art is paid for by the Michael Yanney Foundation, and so none of the art is paid with public tax dollars, which is a question we get a lot. But this is our very first piece of art. This is called the Triangle Dango. It's by Juan Canico, and she's an artist based out of Omaha. It's a ceramic piece, so it's done in a kiln. And one of our other seasonals here, she's minoring in Spanish. And so she informed us that dango also means triangle, so this is called the triangle. And a lot of our seasonals and employees here, we call this the dango Dorito, because we think it looks like a Dorito. Okay, now we're entering the very first garden here out of 7. This is the edibles garden. And so everything in here is edible or used for medicinal use. So to start here, we have 2 beds. This side of the bed is medicinal plants such as yarrow, Joe Pye weed, and there's goldenrod on the other side. And then this side is your culinary herbs. So there's things like sage, basil, and chives down on the end. So all those things are used in culinary cooking. And then along the outside of this bed, we have 32 different varieties of mint and fruit trees. So pear, cherry, apple, things like that. Now we'll enter the actual garden part. We have raised beds and in-ground beds. Okay, so in some of our in-ground beds, we have things like broccoli, cucumbers, okra, strawberries, asparagus, tomatoes, and eggplant. We did have a pumpkin and a pineapple, but somebody smashed our pumpkin and somebody stole our pineapple. Okay, and then in some of our above-ground beds, we have things like kale, peppers, more tomatoes, green beans, potatoes, more broccoli, more eggplant, more cucumbers, garlic, carrots, onion, and then over here, that is our grape vineyard, but it was overtaken by the Japanese beetles this year. It's a full war against Japanese beetles here. We are out here every day picking Japanese beetles off, and they still eat alive our grapes. So they were kind of a flop this year. Okay, these are our berry beds. So this is raspberries and blackberries, and then over here was, we had a lot of blueberries, but they got blight, so we took those out. But we have elderberry, chokeberry, jostaberry, things like that. But a really cool raspberry variant that we have here is the fall gold raspberry, which are these ones. And these are as red as they will get, and they are just straight sugar. They're delicious. Okay, this is the artwork in the edibles garden. This is called the Peacekeeper. It's by George Lundeen. He's originally based out of Holdridge, Nebraska, but now I believe he's in Colorado. I really like this sculpture. It might be my favorite one. It's tied with another one here in the park, but it's a little boy with his 2 dogs and a cat, so I guess that's probably why it's my favorite. Okay, now we are entering our second garden here. This is the Xeriscape. Xeriscape just means requiring less water. So the plants in the next 5 beds you're gonna see are all part of one garden, which is the Xeriscape. And this is our artwork here in the Xeriscape. This is the Meadowlark. This is by Sheila Berger. It's a steel sculpture. Okay, so here are the 5 beds in the Xeriscape. This is the first one. This is all your traditional conifers, so spruces, pines, firs, creeping spruce, all your really drought tolerant plants. And then this middle one is more conifers and spruces. It's also got some weird variants of ginkgo in here that make it really fun. Then you have more of your grasses, flowers, things like that. You're gonna see things like mint, yarrow, sand cherry, things of that nature. Then you have the rock garden, which is our newest garden in the park. It is gonna be your cactuses, agave, what are these? Moss, rock moss? No, what is it? Moss something. I can't remember what it is. If I remember, I'll put it in the video, but it's like a moss thing. It's got these little pretty pink flowers. And then this is the last one in the Xeriscape. And if Chris can get the spiral formation of the rocks in the center, it's set up that way for water drainage. And so the plants on the outermost area need the least amount of water, and the plants in the center need the most water. So when it rains, the water spirals down towards the center, and that's how this garden works.
Go.
Okay, this is the rose garden. In this garden, we have about 500 rose plants. We started out with about 600, but we had a really hard time with Japanese beetles and blight, and so about 100 were taken out of the garden, but we're still at about 500 plants here in the garden. This is our artwork here in the rose garden. These are tanukis. You either love them or you hate them. Personally, I hate them, and Chris, our videographer here, is terrified of them. So these are also by Juan Kaneko. They are to resemble a mythological creature similar to a badger, and they're to bring good luck, fertility, and happiness, but she took an odd take on the tanuki because they originally, in the mythological sense, are supposed to be small and like muted colors, but she took a different take and made them very large and very colorful. And these are also ceramic pieces, so done in a kiln.
I think they're pretty creepy.
Okay, so this is one of our outer rows of hibiscus. Hibiscus are really cool, so they put so much energy into these plate-like flowers that only last for one day. The blooms last for one day and then they self-dehead, so we, thank goodness, don't have to deadhead the hibiscus. So the hibiscus are going to be in the first row, and Rose of Sharon is in the second row. Rose of Sharon is also a hibiscus, and personally I think they're prettier, but if Chris would like to zoom in here on a couple of our hibiscus flowers, they are so pretty, and they only last for one day. I also love all the color variation you get with the Rose of Sharon. I mean, you get colors that you don't see in any other type of floral plants. And like, so down there's a blue, there's purple, there's red, there's white, there's pink. I mean, there's literally every color of the rainbow. And that's our hibiscus. So I forgot to mention the reason I was hired here at the park. I was hired here at the park to label almost all of the plants in the botanical gardens. And so these signs here are my contribution to the park. They're in all 7 of the botanical gardens. They have common name and scientific name and species identification. And so I went around the park, I identified all of the plants in the park, I submitted those names into a botanical society, actually the Missouri Botanical Society. Then we got all these plaques made, and we went around and put all the plaques out, and we're still not done. There's going to be about 1,700 plaques when we're done. I think we're at about 700 currently, so still have a long ways to go. But that's my contribution to the park. That's why I was hired. Okay, so this sidewalk that goes down the entire center of the park indicates our phase 1 and phase 2 of the park. So everything north of the sidewalk is phase 2, meaning it was done in the last 3 years, and everything south of the sidewalk is phase 1, everything that was done about 10 years ago. These were our lilac and hydrangea beds, but they are obviously under a lot of construction. So we were having a really hard time keeping plants alive in these beds right here, and we weren't sure why. And so we had the Nebraska soil, I can't remember her actual title, but she's a soil person, and she came, did analysis of our soil, and we have a soil disease in these few beds right here that are covered in caution tape. And so we took every single plant out, and then we are going to dig down 6 feet, and we will replace all that dirt with dirt not ill with the soil-borne disease, and we will try again. So that is why this is under construction. We do have a couple of beds here that are okay, and they have hydrangeas in them, but it wasn't a very good hydrangea year this year because of the weird weather patterns, and so they don't look very good anyways, and so kind of a flop over here. But for artwork in this area, we have the ladder, which is stainless steel covered with stained glass panels. The stained glass is tempered glass, so it's the glass that you would have on your car windshield. That's how it is able to stay outside. And then we have another tanuki. This is our second tanuki in the park. And this one is different colors and different patterns, but the same thing as the one that was in the roses. Okay, so now we are entering the pollinator garden. This is another one of my favorite gardens. This garden is set up in the shape of a butterfly. So each half of this is symmetrical. So we have the center piece, and then on each side of the center piece is the exact same planting style. So this garden is called the pollinator garden because everything in this garden is set up for pollinator success. And so we have pollinator food, pollinator nectar, pollinator housing, and we also have a water bubbler for them to be able to drink out of. And so as we come into this part, you will see this statue is by Matthew Plassic. It is bronze, stainless steel, and stained glass. And in here, we'll try to find a couple of clips, but we get a ton of monarch butterflies, bees, wasps, and every single pollinator you could ever imagine will be in this garden. It's on the mint. They love the mint. Okay, so this is the bubbler. It is so the pollinators in this garden have water, also love dogs drink out of it. But we use absolutely no chemicals in this bubbler. That's why you see a lot of algae. But we don't want any chemicals from the water to be contaminating our pollinators for this garden because it will kill them. And we rely so heavily on the pollinators here at Yanney Park to let our flowers bloom. And then let's find a monarch too. This is just the south entrance to the park, but I just like to point out these really tall plants with the white flowers. They're planted almost everywhere. Like when I was in Omaha for Chris's competition, I pointed them out to Chris. I was like, it's so funny that they'll plant this plant just anywhere because it's a tobacco plant. I just wanted to really quickly point out this is our state flower, the goldenrod, here in the pollinator garden. That is a monarch butterfly on our butterfly bushes. You will see the most butterflies on these butterfly bushes. They come in purple and white, and they have a pink variety, but we don't have it here. And these flowers are so sweet. If you smell it, it smells like candy, and that's why the butterflies love these bushes so much. And here's a perfect example. I just kind of like this plant because it's kind of funny. This is called Baptisia, and I think it's funny because Baptisia, baby, they have these funny little pods that go like this, like a baby rattle, and so I think they're funny. It's just a little tiny garden that we have sitting before the pollinator garden, and the sculpture in here is the yellow and purple gilded tower. Every single piece is an individual piece with its own socket, and so each piece has a tiny bit of give to it. And so in rain, hail, wind, over the 10 years this sculpture has been here, we have broken 3 pieces. Again, they're tempered glass, and so it's the glass that's on your car windshield. And every single year we get a robin's nest at the top of this tower. And it's a very beautiful piece of artwork here in the park. A lot of people really like it. I don't really get, like, it's supposed to be, you know, like the abstract art. You're supposed to have like a feeling for it. I think it's pretty, but it's not my favorite piece in the park. Okay, so this is the native Nebraska garden here in the park. The outer ring of the native garden is purposely planted, and then the center is a wild grassland. And so every single plant in this garden is either native to Nebraska or has a Nebraska origin or story behind it. And so I will show a couple of clips of specific plants to give you a sense of that. But this centerpiece we don't even weed, and so yes, you will see bindweed, you will see mallow, you will see thistle and buffalo burr, but it's supposed to be a wild grassland, so that's the point. In this outer section we do weed though. American plum. She is in full fruit right now. These are actually ripe and can be eaten. This is the Nebraska state tree, the cottonwood. This is our newest piece of artwork. This was actually just put in here in 2024. And this is called Prairie Flowers by George Lundeen. She is supposed to represent the sowing of the prairie. So the only place in the entire park where you're going to see coneflower this year is in the native garden, where we don't do any interference with the flowers in here. So this year, all the coneflower in the park got, it's a mixture of a blight and a fungus, and it causes deformations in the flowers. So every single coneflower in this park got taken out except for in the native garden. So you will see some coneflowers here in the native garden, but they don't look very good. And it's because of the blight fungus that causes deformation during the growing of the flower. Okay, so this is my tied first place piece of artwork in the garden. This is also by Matthew Plassick. It's made out of bronze and is a pheasant. And I love the placement of this sculpture, the coloration of this sculpture, and the meaning behind this sculpture. It being placed in the native Nebraska garden is so representative of Nebraska. And also the colors that Matthew Plassick is able to get with this bronze, I think is just gorgeous, which is why it's one of my favorite sculptures. This is wild onion, and it can be used in stews and soups, and it does taste and smell exactly like onion, but it's here, we have it planted in a lot of places in the garden actually, but it's here in the native Nebraska because it's actually a weed, and a lot of people spray for it and kill it, but yeah, wild onion. Okay, this is the annual garden. This garden is replanted every single year with a theme. So this year's theme was Candyland. So every bed in this garden is themed after Candyland. The artwork in here is called Luminous. They are poppies by Matthew Plassick. They're called luminous because at night they do light up. Additionally, this garden, as I said, is planted every single year with the help of we are so thankful for our volunteers, because this garden is about 1,600 to 2,000 plants. It gets planted in about 2.5–3 hours, and it's because of our 80 volunteers that help around this park, and without them we could not get this done. And I'll give you a little secret. Next year's theme for the annuals garden is Under the Sea. I didn't tell you that, but it is going to be under the sea, so it's going to be really dark blues, greens, with pops of orange and yellow to be like life and coral and sea creatures, but that's for next year. This year, Candyland. This bed, along with the matching bed on that side, is Peppermint Forest, so you got your pinks and your whites. This is actually castor bean, which is incredibly poisonous. The leaves, the fruits, the seeds, the roots, all of it. But how beautiful is it? So yes, we have castor bean here in our park, and that's the first bed. Now we're entering Lollipop Woods. These are our lollipops. We had like 8 of them, but they try really hard to die. And so we're down to 2, and they still look very sad, but they're supposed to represent our Lollipop Woods. That's why you're gonna see super bright colors, lots of zinnias and coreopsis, along with some super tall cannas along the outside. And that's Lollipop Woods. This right here is Molasses Swamp. So you're gonna see black sweet potato vine, amaranth, castor bean, and dill. And that's supposed to be representative of Molasses Swamp. Okay, this bed is Queen Frostine, and so it's a bunch of whites, greens with a couple pops of purple. So you're gonna see spider plant, salvia. There's a couple tobacco plants as well. This is a type of, it's actually in the carrot family, so it's a type of wild carrot. Yeah, but a lot of the plants in this garden, white, to represent Queen Frostine. Around the annual garden is another row of hibiscus, just because the hibiscus are so pretty. But on a cold, windy day like today, we don't have a ton of blooms, which is kind of sad because it's the day we're recording this video, but normally it's full of blooms. This bed right here is called Gooey Gumdrop. That's why it's got all the fun colors and shapes and sizes. I want to point out this plant right here. This is moonflower, and it's a very popularly planted plant, especially here in the gardens. We did have an entire bed of it in the lilac and hydrangea that did have to get teared out. But it's so pretty, and it smells like absolutely sweaty dog poop. Okay, so in this middle bed here, it's going to be more zinnias, sweet potato vine. These are elephant ears, probably one of my favorite plants in the garden, just because, like, look how massive these leaves are. Look how massive that is. I mean, they're huge, and there's so many different color variations, which we'll show you over here, but this is one of my favorite plants. And then right here is the other half of peppermint forest that you saw on the other side as well. Okay, so quick little update. I misspoke about how many plants are in the annuals garden. I said there's like 16 to 1700, but I was thinking about signs in the park that I'm working on. Actually, there's 25,000 plants in the annuals garden, so that is way more impressive than 16 to 1700, and makes more sense why we have 80 volunteers and we get it done in 3 hours. It's super impressive. Also, I wanted to mention that we harvest the edibles garden every Monday and Friday. And last year we had 600 pounds of produce. This year we're set to beat that. And we take it to the local food pantries here in town. And then also, I just wanted to thank you for watching my video. I'm very, I like to show off what we do here. We have 12.6 acres that we're in charge of out of the 80-acre park. We are working on having this classified as an actual botanical garden. That's why part of my job is to label the plants, because botanical gardens have labels. I want to do a quick shout out for the Senior Center. It's also paid for by the Michael Yanney Foundation, and the tower, so famously here at Yanney, also paid for with foundation money. We also, in addition, have 2 splash pads, a park. We have a ERC, or environmental residence. It's like a convention center. It has, it's where you can rent out like boats, kayaks, things like that. And then, yeah, this is where I work.